Okay, Matt Monroe there, and he's going to change the world. And another woman that's been doing her bit to try and change the world of late. Well, not of late, for a long time now. Tracy Hamby, good morning.
Good morning, changing the world with my Martin Luther King speech.
Well, yeah, Tracy, first of all, well done to you. An excellent, heartfelt speech at last weekend's rally in Dublin. And I know it wasn't easy. I'm not going to say it can't have been easy. I know it wasn't easy to get up there and bare your soul. You did it. It's obviously you struck a chord with a lot of people. I know that the subsequent footage that's up on social media has been viewed over 10,000 times.
12,000 views. So
there you go. Yeah,
it's making its own impact. It's been shared an awful lot, and I'd appreciate more shares, because I suppose my message is very simple. We need to be talking about our problems and our stories, because the government ain't listening. And I think the more that will come forward and talk about it, the more they'll have no choice but to wake up and listen. I represent a new demographic, as I call it, the nearly homeless, those in fear of losing their homes. And I know there's loads, and I know there's loads who are staying quiet, and I know there's loads who are ignoring the mail. I was one of them. I mean, I'm 7 years on. I'm actually only starting my journey now, but it's 7 years in the making. You know, so I've learned an awful lot in the 7 years, and I know I ignored mails. I know I had no job or income at the time, and I'm separated, and all that was going on, the legal side, and, you know, and now I'm heading into personal insolvency.
Can I take you back, Tracy, to where this started? And I know I don't want to, delve in too far, but just explain to people, because, your story, as you said, it's not that unusual. It's just somebody getting on everyday life, and then just something happens, and that sets a string of events,
I
just as a domino
to it
effect.
In the speech, I had a dream like everyone else. I grew up, I wanted to be a nurse, I wanted to work hard, I wanted to be happy, I wanted to have a family, and I achieved all of that. But at the height of the achievement came the crash, the boom, and my then husband and I bought a house which was well overpriced for what it was. It was a renovation project. It was a 3-bed bungalow on a bit of land, and really needed to be knocked and rebuilt. But that was my ex-husband's dream. I found the property that he wanted, and we went ahead with the purchase, and literally overnight, that was around a Christmas time, and literally overnight, boom, the crash. I mean, we were the Celtic tiger example, and our marriage didn't survive the stress. And I had a 3-year-old child at the time, and ended the marriage because it wasn't sustainable, but then left the crisis of, okay, what now? And unfortunately it wasn't. Marriage breakups go one of two ways, amicable or not amicable. And unfortunately I was the other, and it took 3 years to get a legal separation in place, and that was actually done for the banks. Not really for me or him. Well, he made it quite difficult to achieve that. That cost me 10 grand. 10,000 euros. That should have gone back to the arrears, which at that time I think were around 45-ish. But it's now 70,000 arrears. Now I've arrested the arrears at 70,000, but I am paying 100% of the mortgage. I am the two people. So I've taken full responsibility of the mortgage for the last 3 years, and have proved that I am a deserted mortgage holder, so that there is another party involved, and that he, by not paying, is actually deserting the mortgage.
When you originally bought this home, and we are talking, I know you said it was a renovation project, but we are talking a 3-bedroom, a modest family home, what most people, as you said, would have aspired to. You were a woman, you were a professional working woman, your husband was working, you had one child, you were thinking, we want a nice home with a bit of space for our kids, the dogs, the cats, whatever. That's, that was the idea. But obviously it was overvalued.
Yeah.
But the banks had no problem lending you the money.
I have to be clear, I wasn't involved in the transaction. That was my husband's role in all of this. He did all the banking and all the accounts and all his business and everything. So I had to just sign a piece of paper and bang, that was it. We owned the property that we owned. So I don't even have paperwork. I have no idea of how that all came to fruition. So all I know is I'm left in this situation of having to try and pick up the pieces and to try and turn it around. when you think about a mortgage, 2 people who are going forward for a mortgage have to have, is it 3 times your annual salary?
Supposed to.
It's supposed
2.5, 3, I think.
So it was when at the time, at the height of the boom, that's what was used as a template to get the mortgage. And now, forward on this number of years, it's just me on a very modest salary having to now pick up for 2 people. And the bank don't care about that, because at the end of the day, it's the loan on the house. It's not the 2 people that are involved. They have not given me any information about the other party. They have just dealt specifically with me and don't care so long as the money is being met as a monthly.
And if you were to say, right, to hell, I'm going to sell this now, and you haven't a hope in hell of
I've had
clearing
loads
that
of
debt.
people say to me, just walk away, hand in the keys.
But you still got that debt attached to your name.
We'll have that debt, exactly. But I'll also have a 10-year-old child who hasn't got a roof over her head, and I need to keep a roof over her head till she's 18 or 21 if she chooses to go to college. I mean, I've done all the maths and the thinking. Looking at the rental market, you're talking about, like, I was paying $1,500. I have now reduced my payments to about $1,300 in line with the PIA proposal, because that was deemed to be what I should be paying. So now I have aligned with that. So local rental for a similar property is in and around that amount. But at the same time, with these new rules and the way it's so difficult to get rental property, you'd be moving frequently. So I came from an upbringing of having to move a lot from Ireland to England and back to Ireland. I had 10 primary schools. So I know what it's like to be uplifted and moved and, constantly on edge going, where are we going to now? So that was never, and that was one of the things when I had a child, was my child is going to have a solid home and be secure. And I'm not downing my parents in any way. They did what they could do. They lived through actually 3 recessions. So I'm only kind of caught up in one, but my job as her parent is to provide a home. It's her fundamental human right. And at the end of the day, there's a lot, this is crisis point, and I know there's loads nearly homeless, and this government has to keep people in their homes. This business of allowing it to escalate into a disastrous monster situation, as I call it, it's going to blow at some point. And the people that are now becoming homeless are people you'd never expect.
Tracy, I wanted you said your job there as a parent, your job, your professional job, because people might know you as a promoter of music, producer of music, a DJ, a radio presenter, but you have a day job.
Yeah, I don't talk about it a lot.
You don't, but so, just, in case anyone thinks, right, Tracy was, that was a bit of a not very, steady career that you had taken out that mortgage. You have a day job. Right, you're a qualified nurse.
At weekends, I do all what you've just discussed, right? Because that was, I created that side of me because Clodagh was going to her dad's at the weekend. So I had to keep my head distracted and focused and keep moving. So that all evolved 7 years ago, naturally. But that's at the weekends. That's my other side. Monday to Friday, I am a nurse. Now, I'm only in, I would say, full-time employment 3 to 4 years. So before that, when my marriage broke down, I did have a breakdown. And that's okay. And I actually took the time. I was supported with sick leave or a sick benefit, and then moving on to one lone parent and unemployment benefit. I was on all the different benefits that I had to be on. And that's where the arrears were accruing. My arrears and his was because he just walked away. But at the same time, I benefited from actually seeing my child grow. For 3 years, she had quality time with her mum because Monday to Friday, I had her. And at the weekends, I didn't. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, at that time. But, that's not sustainable and wasn't. But I had to get my head back into the game. I tried to create a business at that time as well. So it's not like I was just on the dole. I actually had family members say to me, you're just a dole head. I've had... You'd be very surprised at things that have been said to me by those closest to me. And I'm not here to upset anyone either. I remember everything, and I remember things that were said. maybe it was just their distress on how to deal with the situation. I don't know, but things were said. And I was trying. I did a start your own business course. I did another course with the enterprise. I tried to launch a business. That kind of failed because it was really only a part-time business, not really a full-time. But I needed to find that out. Mm-hmm. And then when I found that out, I went back into nursing and did a private nursing job on a nurse line. And then from that, when my mum, you're all going to be crying soon, when my mum was diagnosed with cancer, was picked up by the nursing staff in the facility to go work with them, and I've been with them 2.5 years now, and I'm an oncology nurse, proudly, in a fantastic facility.
Okay, and I'm very glad to say your mum did survive cancer.
Yes, and she's well.
She is well. I suppose at this juncture, Tracy, you've mentioned your mum there, and I know this journey has been very much affected by the passing of your father just over a year ago, and I think that was a huge catalyst for you to sort of up things a notch.
So, Dad died December 2016, but before that, November 2016, I went on the Pat Kenny live show, and it was all about the budget, and Pascal Donoghue was on saying how the recession's over, wonderful, isn't it great, and all this. And I said, excuse me, I'm a nurse living on the breadline, and spoke out and alluded to my situation and all that. But thanks to the advertising campaign by TV3, I was on every minute. Just a caption of me saying I was on the breadline, and my dad thought it was very funny and went, ha ha ha, you're the breadline nurse. But little did I realise a month later he would pass, and I'm going to get upset now. So he was on holiday in Portugal with his brother and their family, and he was busy showing everyone the video. Now, I didn't know any of this until his funeral, that everyone came up to me saying how proud he was and how brave I was for speaking out nationally like that. And I suppose because he never told me, I was a bit disappointed, but Dad was never like that. But part of me was like, well, you know what, maybe I did that programme actually for him, not for me. And that made me realise that maybe by me speaking out, I'm not doing it so much for me. I don't want to be a Martin Luther King or, patriarch. That there's other people behind me that need to hear my voice. One person who I have to thank again, another person, Gillian Godsill. I read an article about her bankruptcy, and I realised I am her, and I'm following her footsteps. And I made contact with her, and by golly, she got straight back to me. She listened to me. She gave me advice. She, at that time, again, it was around the time my dad begging me to do something, get this house situation sorted and get your life back. I contacted her. And as part of that dialogue, I actually made contact with MABS, who then organised a PIP, who then organised a solicitor, who then organised a PIA proposal. So at least I'm doing something, and it is under the realms of legalities. But to be fair to the bank, and I'm not going to mention the bank, other than that they did not pursue me like other people have been pursued. In the whole 7 years, they did not, to be fair. They wrote monthly telling me your arrears are, the usual. But they did not hound me, or they did not, threaten court. It never got to a legal stage. I have an account manager, and we email, and I email her monthly. I've paid you, please confirm receipt. I mean, I've been very business about it. And actually, probably this is a little milestone. Because of the bank holiday, I made a payment on the 30th of March, but because it was a bank holiday, it didn't hit the account till April, and each payment is a calendar month. So that could have been default. But she knows me so well that she knew that wasn't the situation. She actually, for the first time in 7 years, emailed me to see was the payment made prior, and was it for March, that it fell into the account on April. And I've said, yes, you're right, it's probably the bank holiday, and that is for March. That's a major development in 7 years for me.
Tracy, you mentioned earlier, and I know this is one that's going to resonate with a lot of people, and myself included. We've all done it when there's been a bill or something that you just couldn't face, and you're just throw it under something, leave it there. Or when you eventually did choose to engage with the bank, to not ignore what was going on, and then this other these other organisations that you've spoken to, particularly MABS, and I know MABS do fantastic work. Did you feel a huge sense of relief?
I don't mean disrespect or anything. I've no relief until this is done. I've no relief until that house is secure for my daughter. So there won't be any relief. I'm humbled to have got a lot of support. Again, that's why I alluded to thanking Pader Tobin and Jerry Kelly from LMFM, because they have given me a voice right from the beginning. And they've been by my side and supporting me and helping me. And it's not a political allegiance. This is not about politics for me. This is about humanity for me. And I made a very public letter to the president at the time, because he was signing in a repossession bill. I knew it was going to affect me. His response was basically, don't panic yet. There's something coming along. I know what it was now. It was the Insolvency Act. So he knew what he was doing. But I put out that letter to everybody. I emailed them all. I have all the responses in my email. The only person who actually took the time to, one, respond, but two, to make an appointment to meet me was Pader Tobin in the whole of Ireland.
Okay, I think we are joined on the line now by Pader Tobin. TD, good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you getting on?
We are doing okay. Tracy has been filling us in, and of course we're very familiar with her story, but she has been relating it to our listeners here this morning. Now I know, and Tracy has acknowledged this more than once, about yourself, Pader, that she wrote out to everybody in the country. You were the one person to come back to her, and since then you have been by her side on this journey. You're very familiar with Tracy's story. How can this happen?
Well, first of all, I want to commend Tracy, first of all, because Tracy is massively brave in what she's doing. There are many, many people in similar situations to Tracy, but for whatever reason, many people don't have the confidence to come out, because to a certain extent, there's a stigma in society with regards to people in housing situations. And there shouldn't be whatsoever, because these are normal people who literally got caught up in the biggest economic crisis that happened in the state. And they were literally caught in a perfect storm and find themselves in these difficulties. So, what Tracy is doing is, I think, is very commendable. She's campaigning on behalf of hundreds and hundreds of other people in similar situations to herself. And she's correct in saying that unless those voices are heard, the necessary pressure won't come onto the government to make the necessary changes to solve this. And just with regards to the figures, the figures came out in the last couple of weeks, which showed that there's about 28,000 private homes in the same situation now as Tracy's. And they reckon that about 14,000 of these, about half of them, are likely or in danger of being lost to the homeowners. So this is a real crisis where people are on the precipice in many ways. And the thing is, they don't have any other options because of the housing crisis. Rents are spiralling. To get a house anywhere in Louth, they're as rare as hen's teeth. And house prices are obviously going up as well. So people, really need to have this situation fixed for them to be able to maintain, as Tracy said earlier there, the human right of having a roof over your head. And it's another thing that I think is really important to mention. The struggles that Tracy has done, and that many people in Tracy's situation has done, is massive, because there would have been many choices where, things like food, heating, clothes, education, holidays, all of those choices would have been put aside because of this massive mortgage bill that had to be met at the end of the month. And that would have happened in tens of thousands of houses throughout the country. And that takes massive sacrifice to be able to do that. So on one level, you have all these people who are making these massive sacrifices, doing their damnedest to keep a roof over their head. And on the other side, you have a banking industry that has been bailed out by about 64 billion euros by these same people. And they have, many of them haven't been carrying out write-downs. And, some of them have been selling those houses to vulture funds for write-downs, but won't sell them or won't do a deal with the homeowners for that write-down. Many of these banks are now earning profits of billions of euros. They're not paying taxes on those amounts of money, and the vulture funds as well. If mortgages are in distress, there's a danger that they could be sold off in big lumps to vulture funds, and any deals that homeowners make with the banks in restructuring their loans, these could possibly be changed in the future by vulture funds. So we have a very precarious situation here, and what needs to happen, as Tracy has said, is a campaign of voices explaining their personal experience to put the pressure on the political system to make the changes to secure their situations.
A rather almost apocalyptic view there, Peadar, and I have to say we were talking about this earlier. There's stories in the papers this morning of people queuing yesterday for 36 hours at a very modest estate in Dublin. These were not investors, these were families who are looking for affordable houses to buy, to put a roof over their heads and their children's. So this is happening again. In fact, in one paper, the photograph is alongside the same thing that happened in 2006, and we know what came 2 years later. How do we stop that?
Well, just and it's not my objective, I suppose, to freak your listeners out too much on this, but it is important that we do kind of, paint the picture as it is. There is hope to a certain extent, and one of those, the strongest message I can give to people who are in this space, and Tracy's given it there earlier on as well, is make contact with regards the difficulties that you have. Make contact with regards to the bank. Make contact to your local representative, make contact to MABs, and start that process. Because in my view, if people are in contact and in making an effort to fix it, it makes it far harder to the bank to dismiss them and to potentially throw them out of their house. Because if it does go before a judge in the future, and a judge sees that a family, a mother, is making a real massive effort to solve this problem, most judges won't put that person out of their house. But if the person ignores the letters coming through the door and doesn't make an effort to try and fix it, then it's easier for the bank to tell the judge, listen, sure, we're doing our damnedest here. Such and such a person is doing nothing. So what can we do? You're nearly gifting an opportunity to a bank who wants to repossess the house by staying quiet and keeping their head down. And so it's important to say, make contact. Just with regards to the housing issues, I think that one of the most important things that the government can do at the moment is they can make the code of conduct that exists for banks, they can make that a legal responsibility. So, right now, Tracy's involved in a personal insolvency process. Now, the head of the personal insolvency process has stated that the banks are still not really engaging in that process, and they're doing their best to scupper it. And indeed, some of the banks have gone to the High Court to see could they put the brakes on that process. So really what the government needs to do is to say that there is a legal responsibility on each bank to provide all of the potential solutions of an insolvency issue to the family. So, for example, they must provide an option to mortgage to rent, they must provide maybe an option to split their mortgage, and they must provide an option to write down the mortgage to the family to make it sustainable. And I think if the government were to rebalance the power between the homeowner and the bank, to rebalance it and make it more even, I think then that would make people safer in their homes and less likely to be on the precipice of homelessness. But with regards to I said this a couple of years ago in a finance committee in front of Michael Noonan, who was the then finance minister. I said, we're heading towards another property bubble here because house prices are rising again. And Michael Noonan's response was at the time that house prices weren't dear enough, that they needed to be dearer for people to be able to build them. And that's what we're seeing at the moment. We're seeing house prices increasing. We're not seeing supply increase, and therefore we're seeing queues of people outside of properties nearly overnight, hoping to see can they buy a home for themselves and their family. And as Tracy said there earlier, a house is a human right. And in my experience as an elected representative for about 10 years now, I've always noticed that if a family has a warm, safe home behind them, nearly everything else works out. But if there isn't a safe home, or if they can't be confident about the future of it, or if it's not warm and comfortable, everything else becomes more difficult. Education becomes more difficult. Health becomes more difficult. And so that's what we need to do in this country. We need to say homes are a right, and the government needs to provide for that.
Okay, I don't think you'll get much argument from many people on that, Peadar. By the way, I'm still trying to get my head around what Michael Newland said, although if I was able to think the same way as Michael Newland, I would be worried about myself, so we'll leave it there. Look, as I said, I know you've been a great help to Tracy, and I suppose the one important thing you've said today here is, for people to engage, but also to know, because you mentioned at the beginning, Tracy has been very, very brave, and a lot of people won't come out and, go public with this, or even want to admit to them or to their friends or to their families that there's an issue there. But that, when people eventually do that and realise they're not alone, you're not the only one, and this is not your fault, you are part of a much bigger situation and issue, that's when we'll have a start.
For sure. And with regards to the I suppose, me helping Tracy, I was delighted to help Tracy, and it just frustrated me at times I couldn't fix it or help fix it faster. But, one of the opportunities as an elected representative is that you do have the ability to ring up somebody and shake the tree a little bit more and make sure that attention is given to people. And that's, every elected representative should be doing that. The other point to your question is, if you want change in this country, the human face, the human story is the most powerful tool to achieve that change. And we saw the tracker mortgages scandal there, that the trackers, that scandal was going on for about 4 or 5 years. But it felt to many people reading in the newspapers and hearing it on the news, it felt a very, stale figures, technical type story that was hard to get your head around. But then what happened was people like Pierce Doherty and other political parties brought real people in front of the committee to tell their stories of how the tracker mortgage scandal actually really impacted on a human level to so many people. And overnight, the whole political situation changed. And I think that the key element of Tracy's campaign is that human face, human story for people to tell. Because if they tell that story enough times, and it gets picked up by the media, like yourselves, and like LMFM, and like TV3, well then the pressure comes on the politicians to make changes. And I would just encourage everybody that's listening to this, who is in that experience, one, to reach out to the bank and to MABS and to an elected representative, two, to tell their story and to be proud of that story, because it's not their fault. They have been failed. I said to Tracy before the show, I said, I've been involved in the Save Navan Hospital campaign. We would regularly hold rallies, and thousands of people would come out in those rallies. But only when we'd hold a housing rally, only a couple of hundred people would come out in housing rallies. And that's because of that stigma. And what Tracy's doing is she's breaking down the stigma. She's shown there's real people behind these problems, real people who are doing real jobs, helping people in their real lives, and they're just caught up in this perfect storm. And I would definitely encourage people to come out and join Tracy in this campaign.
Indeed, yeah. And Tracy, I think she's coined it herself, the new demographic, nearly homeless. So I think it's time we put a hashtag on that one and just got it going viral. Listen, in the meantime, Peadar, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to us this morning.
No bother. Well done to you both. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peadar.
Breathing in, she's tired of walking. Breathing out, she takes my hand into the rip tide again. She'll lead me to the water now, but she'll leave you just the same. If I only thought she'd keep it safe, I'd give my life to her. dragging me away. This could last a lifetime if she'd stay. She's streaming through my phone, she's flooding through my life, and I'll drown. Between my feet I feel the ripples. Getting in, it feels so good, but I'm riptide again. Swimming in the water now. Should leave you just the same. And I give her everything I am. She'll give me one more day. She's a riptide dragging me away. This could last a lifetime if she'd stay. She's streaming through my phone, she's flooding through my life, but I'll drown by her side. I can feel my breath being taken away, getting deeper now. She's surrounding my skin, and she's pulling me in, and I can't get out. I'm retired to her side. I was longing for her to stay, but she's never gonna stay. She's never gonna stay, but I'll try. Dragging me away. This could last a lifetime if she'd stay, but she's never gonna stay. She's never gonna stay, but I'll try by her side. She's a riptide dragging me away. This could last a lifetime if she'd stay. She's streaming through my phone, she's flooding through my life, and I'll drown.
There we go, Tracy. That was Picture House.
Oh,
That's another
look,
one
all
of
the
your-
Irish music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another one. The one that you're. That's not your one to watch. That's another.
That's Dundalk FM's Listener's Choice on
Listener's
100%
Choice.
Irish.
There we go. I know they're good friends of yours as well. You've had him in here a few times.
I've had
haven't
Dave
you?
in. Dave actually was involved in setting up the takeover on Dundalk FM, and that's where I bring in an Irish artist, and they take over the airways, and I'm their sidekick. Dave's been in 3 times, maybe 4. He loves it, and he'll do it all the time. And he's a friend of mine now. I'm very lucky, actually. And actually, I want to shout out to Steve Wall from The Stunning. He was there on Saturday. He marched, and he came up to me afterwards. He said, and threw his arms around me. He said, "Well done, your speech was brilliant, and proud of you," basically. And then I was like, "When are you sending me the voiceover for that track?" You know.
But there's a bit of a movement afoot, you know. As I said, let's get the hashtag on this now, because the only thing is, you know, we've had it with the homelessness, and we saw last year we had that great Home Sweet Home campaign and the occupation of Apollo House, etc. And you know, everybody thought that would affect change, and there was very high profile people behind it. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the year, we find out that the figures have jumped from 7,000 to over 10,000. But you know what you've come, the one you've struck on is the nearly homeless. Because you would have a roof over your head, because you're not in temporary accommodation.
We're the hidden statistic.
Absolutely. But you're still, and you're living with just as much worry, just as much concern. Something I know Patter touched on it when we spoke to him there, and you have spoken about this before yourself, because I heard you interviewed by Jerry Kelly a couple of times, and you know that when you did start to engage with your bank, and when you were servicing this mortgage, that it came at a cost not only to you but to Clodagh. You know, there were times when you were concerned that you wouldn't have enough money to put €5 in your electricity.
Electricity. I've no heating. in the house. So we have a gasser, and God knows what the fumes of that is going to do to us long term. There's damp in the house, there's broken gutters. The house is kind of falling apart, but it's still a roof over our house, and it's still like we can wear loads of clothes and electric blanket, and we can do what we can do to keep as warm. But I've had to I have had times where I've fed Clodagh and not eaten. And that's just me being honest. It's not, that's me making a mother's sacrifice. I mean, I've no problem going into a charity shop and buying charity clothes. That's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very good at Pip alluded to it. I'm just really good at juggling money and managing my accounts. And, I'm in minus money, but it's the way I juggle it. And that's how I've managed to survive. It's all about survival, really.
Okay, so you're a nurse, you're working full time, you've got other little jobs going on the side, and there are times when you're not eating and your daughter is. There's something seriously wrong there. And as you mentioned, you don't have heating in your house. Your house needs a lot of repairs. If your house was the responsibility of the local authority, you'd probably find that there's some health and safety law that wouldn't deem it fit for habitation.
That's what I would love. I'd love an inspector to come and actually say, you know what, this house isn't fit for living purpose. It needs X amount of repairs. I actually am considering doing that for a legal, as part of the legal case, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be great if there's anyone out there that actually provides that. If I was to go to the county councils, aren't they doing buy to rent or rent to buy or whatever the scheme is? The house has to be in pristine condition to do that. So in other words, if that arrangement fails, that they're in a position to sell it on. My house isn't. It's in a lot of need of repair and TLC. If I do succeed in taking over the house and being insolvent and potentially getting a write down, etc., I will give it the TLC that I can to get it back to livable condition. But I mean, it is what it is. It's still a roof over our head. And Clodagh does ask me, now she's not so much, but are we going to lose the house? Are the banks going to take the house? I mean, that's a 10-year-old, but we're still in the house, and I keep saying that, but we still live here. We still have the house. So she knows Mommy's doing above and beyond. I actually, when I picked her up on Sunday, because other people would be kind of going, oh, we saw your mom on the telly, we saw your mom on the news, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to be the one to show her the speech and the video and all that. So I had to do that because I know other people are going to say it to her. So my child is very mature for her age, but she's beyond her years because of a lot that she's had to go through and be exposed to. I just hope that one day it'll stand to her and that she will be a solid person coming into this world. Hopefully.
I probably should point out, by the way, because we were speaking there about local authorities and local representatives, etc., and Peadar Tobin, as you mentioned, has been behind you all the way. He is your local TD. Tracy doesn't live here in Dundalk. Tracy lives
I live in Navan.
In Navan. So in case people are out there, they're going,
but
well,
I volunteer.
I'm getting on to
I volunteer here.
But you do. Oh, you're very much
Dundalk,
part of Dundalk, but it's just a different jurisdiction in case somebody gets on there.
But no, I put that call out to everyone in Ireland. That was a very open letter. It just so happened it was Peadar Tobin in my jurisdiction that contacted me. Do you know what I mean? It could have been anyone. It could have been someone in Galway. Actually, that's brought into my head the Insolvency Act. There was 11 or 13 solicitors on the list. None of them are Meath. There's some in Louth, there's some in Galway, there's some in Limerick. You know what I mean? None of them actually on it's the what's it called? Legal aid board list of solicitors. None of them are in Meath, and my court will be in Meath. So in its infancy is all I could say.
Right. Tracy, what's the future? I mean,
God knows.
If you did, you said there, if you get the write down, then you really,
that's fantastic.
This is more than just your house or a load of figures or something that's got a 70 grand deficit or arrears on it, or this is your home and Clodagh's home and
our future.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like the hierarchy of needs. At the Maslow's law, like I'm thinking back to my nursing and learning, and one of the fundamental rights is security and safety within a home. That's all I'm alluding to. But look, if this fails, if this insolvency fails, well, then I'll become bankrupt and I'll lose my house and I will have to just move house every year, 2 years, whatever happens. I can't fall on family members because I have to go back again to this point. You really will know who's at your side and who isn't. I have 2 key friends, and I'll thank them now, Aoife and Faith, who have very much been at my side along this journey as well. And they've been really like sisters to me. And I'm not putting down my family. I have a family by blood and I do love them, but they haven't been equipped. They're not able to give support or advice or be a part of this. And even now that I'm going public with it all, I'm bringing some attention by default to them. So apologies about that, but I have to think of the people coming behind me. I have to think back to when I started this journey 7 years ago, when I felt alone. I didn't know who to turn to or what to do, and I created my own ideas and put out that letter and made contact and did everything that I could. I went public in order to get the help, and I have got help. I'm now 7 years on, so that I'm sorry if it upset anybody, but I had to do what I had to do to protect my daughter, my family.
And finally, and again, I know you've put the call out, you've said to people, if they're not willing to put themselves out there, you are.
I'll talk for them.
Voice.
I will talk. All I want is your stories. I need to know what's going on. I need to know the human story behind it. I'll put it out. I'll be the spokesperson for everybody in the whole of Ireland. I mean, I can't do more than that. I'll call you Mrs. A, Mr. B. I really will. I'll put it into a book as well. I'll do whatever it takes. I'm committing to this cause because there's a cascade. There's a monster coming, and it's going to blow at some point. And you already alluded to it, the crisis of 2006 with the housing, everyone queuing up for new houses and stuff. And it's back to that. We've learnt nothing. So it's time for change. And the only change can come from within. We need to speak up and say, enough's enough.
I leave you with that last word there, Tracy. And if anyone wants to get in touch with her, Tracy's here. She's one of us. Thanks a million for coming in and for being so open and honest, not just with us, but with all of our listeners and indeed with the entire country last Saturday. That is Tracy Hamby. Just time to thank our other guests. Earlier on, we spoke to Dave McCooey, also to Sarah Kelly, and of course to Peadar Tobin, who joined us on the line there. Porrick, thank you for operating the desk there this morning. Most importantly, though, thank you out there for listening. Up next, you've the Lunchbox. You can hear a repeat of this programme at 10 p.m. tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to do it all over. Till then, ciao.